Today we're going to explore a section of Idaho that's often overlooked, the Owyhee Desert country. Although it appears a desolate and forsaken land, man has actually wandered its vast reaches for thousands of years.
They came from all walks of life, and each left behind the mark of his passing on the desert earth. Ancient man's petroglyphs remain etched forever on the desert walls. He was followed by generations of Paiute, Shoshone, Snake, and Bannock Indians who roamed the mountains and the canyons of the desert in the nomadic traditions of their tribe. The 1840s saw the fragile grasslands endure the first trickle of what would soon become a flood. Wagons hauling hopeful immigrants carved a permanent trail across the Owyhee Flats as they followed their dreams further west. Miners were the next to leave their mark. They came in the thousands, some from as far away as China, to answer the call to riches. Towns sprang up overnight, and the desert earth scratched and bled, yielding its ores to a lucky few. Hopes of silver and gold became broken dreams, scattered like whispers across the scarred landscape. But new treasure was discovered. Abundant grasslands, lush with vegetation, provided an immense range for domestic livestock. Enthusiasm extracted a price: damaged land and eroded streams. But ranchers took note, and today responsible ranchers apply new management practices in an attempt to try and stabilize the delicate ecosystem called the Owyhee Desert.
You could say appreciating desert landscapes is an acquired taste. But author Sheldon Bluestein, in his book Exploring Idaho's High Desert, says it much more succinctly. It takes time and effort to appreciate desert landscapes, whereas any fool, author included, can appreciate the sawtooths at first glance. Sheldon's book is an introduction to Idaho desert hiking. He is our guide as we introduce you to the beauty of an Owyhee Desert spring in southwest Idaho.
Desert is different than mountain. Desert is the land of the long vistas. It is the land of the challenging route finding and challenging hiking.
Sheldon nicknames this hike Surprise Canyon. Page 74 of his book refers to it as Mary's Creek, an unassuming little stream that eventually works its way to the Bruneau River by way of Sheep Creek.
We're starting along the edge of the creek, and we're going to follow the creek up the canyon for a ways until the canyon walls get steep. Then we'll jump out and follow the rim, which is easy going for the rest of the trip.
Sheldon stresses that even experienced mountain hikers should start at a beginner level in the desert and work your way up to more advanced hikes.
You've just got to pick your place to climb up out of the stream and up the sides of this canyon that's in the making. The first time into an area, you're discovering, you're finding the route for yourself and making all those little decisions.
Unlike Forest Service trails, the desert has few markings. The challenge lies in finding a route, rendering a map and compass handy traveling companions.
That's the main challenge, is adding the route finding to the hiking equation. And the big part of that is learning to live with the feeling of being ever so slightly lost all the time.
The lost feeling gives way to the surprise, a breathtaking canyon edged in the colors of a desert spring, the bright red of Indian paintbrush and soft pink flux.
Desert hiking and love of desert is a cumulative experience that grows on you with every hike as you train your eye to see the beauty and the naturalness.
Volcanic forces combined with wind and water carved the towering basalt cliffs that shield the canyon below. The sculpturing never ends, the forces of nature continuing to mold and shape, forever an artist. Wildlife, too, may be part of a desert hike. Deer, antelope, and bighorn sheep will keep a wary distance, but watch for the quick movement of a lizard across the rocks or a horned toad beneath the sagebrush. And of course, that badly maligned creature of the desert, the rattlesnake, can be an unexpected surprise.
They're one of the last predators allowed to survive out here, and it's always a kick to encounter one of those, and it gets your adrenaline surging no matter what the circumstances are.
A first aid kit is part of the survival gear Sheldon always carries on a desert hike. Self-sufficiency is the key here. There's always the possibility of injury to either you or a hiking partner. You should be prepared to spend the night. Along with warm clothes and rain gear, he includes food, flashlight, whistle, matches, and extra water.
There's two rules. You always want to carry a reserve of water, and you also, which means you're going to carry more water than you might like to carry. Also, the second rule is drink your water that you're carrying before the weight of that water makes you so exhausted that you collapse in the heat.
The canyons aren't the only surprises in the desert. Some hikes can take you through areas that are essentially forests. A walk up the slopes of Little Blue Table, what Sheldon calls a plateau within a plateau, enfolds you in the cool green shadows of a wooded grove.
This is different. This is lush for Owyhee County. We have our mountain mahoganies and we have our aspens. We have healthy big sagebrush through here. We have currants, gooseberries, and good grass in this area. This is a fabulous site.
Trees are an important part of the Owyhee Desert environment. Here it's aspen and mountain mahogany. Further west, along the backcountry byway, you'll drive through forests of junipers, growing above the 5,000-foot mark.
Essentially, junipers occur in the Owyhee area in association with rocky outcrops and things like that. And more recently, because of fire control and grazing, the junipers have spread into areas that they didn't occur historically. And so there's been a push to remove junipers from some of those areas to allow the grasses to grow back in those areas. It's felt that junipers compete with grasses for water and reduce the productivity of grasses.
Matt McCoy is part of a study team made up of biologists from the Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, and members of the Audubon Society. The idea is to gather some baseline information on how important juniper stands are to desert wildlife, especially birds. This information will help land managers make a decision on whether to remove parts of the juniper forest and the best methods for doing so.
A lot of the birds that come up here to nest in the springtime spend their winters down in the Central and South America. And we know that some of those habitats down there are being impacted by cutting of rainforests and things like that. And if we impact these areas up here as well, we can have a really significant impact on the animals themselves. And we can see some substantial population declines.
Idaho's state bird, the mountain bluebird, is one species that could be impacted. They are second cavity nesters. This means they build their nests in old-growth trees where woodpeckers have already drilled holes into the dead wood.
Trees like this furnish not only places for the birds to nest in cavities in the trees, but they also have berries on them, juniper berries, and the bluebird being a thrush, part of its diet is berries.
Historically, fire checked the spread of junipers. Selective burning is one of the methods land managers are currently considering to control the spread of junipers. This area was burned in 1984. It's called a partial burn. About 40% of the junipers were killed, but patches of live trees and sagebrush survived, providing habitat for birds. The trees that did burn generate insect life, another vital food source for the nesting birds. Junipers are slow-growing, long-lived trees. Some, like this twisted old soldier, were here before the time of Columbus. A part of the mysterious desert community, a sometimes harsh environment, but one that surprises us with its haunting beauty.
The desert is really nice because you can see forever, and you kind of have a feel for your insignificance out here, in that you're just a little spot out here, but you can get a feel for the immenseness of the area.